At my child's birthday party, my in-laws told the clown to leave because this isn't what we wanted. They brought their own entertainer and replaced my homemade cake with a store-bought one. My husband said, they were just trying to help. I stayed quiet. But on the thank you cards, I mailed everyone photos, only from the half of the party that actually respected my plans. I'm a 35-year-old mom living in Springfield, Missouri. My son, Mason, turned 6 last month. I planned his birthday party for months. I thought it would be the kind of memory he'd hold on to forever. Instead, it became a reminder of how little respect I get from my in-laws and how spineless my husband can be. Let me start at the beginning. Mason is obsessed with clowns and anything circus-related. He's watched the same circus cartoon 50 times. So when I asked him what kind of birthday he wanted, he didn't hesitate. Circus. With a clown and animals and tickets. So that's what I planned. I took it seriously. I started prepping in January. I made a whole cardboard circus tent in the backyard with red and white curtains, posters, and even a ring toss station. I spent hours on Pinterest and eBay finding decorations and games. My garage was a mess for months, and I didn't mind one bit. I found a clown performer through a local Facebook moms group. His name was Chuckles, and his reviews were great. He did face painting, magic tricks, balloon animals. All of it. He was affordable and had his own insurance. I booked him right away. I also decided to bake the cake myself. 3 layers. Vanilla, strawberry, and chocolate. I covered it in circus colors and made little fondant animals. I even found a Ferris wheel cake topper that actually spun. It wasn't professional, but it was filled with love. I finished it at 2 a.m. the night before, exhausted but proud. Greg, my husband, said it looked cute. That was it. His energy during this whole process was barely there. He works a lot, but that's not the whole story. He just never stands up to his parents. I should have known something was coming. His mom, Nancy, is the queen of I just thought it would be better if. She says she wants to help, but really she wants control. Always has. His dad, George, barely talks, but when he does, it's usually a jab masked as a joke. They're the kind of people who show up late, criticize things under their breath, then act surprised when nobody wants to spend time with them. The party was supposed to start at 2 p.m. on a Saturday. Kids started showing up around 1:45. By 2:10, we had 10 kids running around in the yard. Mason was bouncing out of his skin with excitement. At 2:15, Chuckles arrived in full costume. Bright red nose, yellow wig, polka suit. Mason screamed when he saw him and ran straight over. The other kids followed. That's when Nancy and George showed up. I could tell right away something was off. Nancy was wearing a fitted dress and heels, like she was going to a dinner party. George had on dress shoes and a tucked-in polo, looking around like he'd just walked into a garage sale. Nancy barely looked at the decorations before saying, "Oh, this is quaint." George added, "Well, it's certainly colorful." I let it go. I was busy handing out popcorn and managing juice boxes. Then I heard Nancy say to George, just loud enough for me to hear, "This isn't what we discussed." I froze. Discussed? Before I could react, Nancy walked straight up to Chuckles, who was mid-balloon animal, and said, "Thank you, but we won't need you today. You can go now." Chuckles looked confused. So did the kids. Mason was holding half a balloon dog. I ran over and said, "Nancy, what are you doing?" She said, with a smile that made my stomach turn, "We hired someone more experienced. We wanted Mason to have a real show." I looked up, and I swear to God, at that exact moment, a man in a tuxedo came walking into our yard. He had a speaker, a table full of props, and a giant banner that said Sir Sparkle the Magician. I couldn't speak. Chuckles gave me a look like, "Do you want me to stay or not?" I didn't even get the chance to decide. Greg walked over and said, "Hey man, sorry. My parents took care of the entertainment." Chuckles nodded, packed up his balloons, and left. I followed him to the sidewalk and paid him anyway. He said, "Happens more than you'd think." Then he left. I walked back inside, shaking. That's when I saw the cake. It was gone. My cake. The one I stayed up all night baking. Gone from the table. In its place, a white, three-layer cake with a giant gold M on top. Fondant edges. Perfect piping. It looked like a wedding cake. Nancy saw me staring and said, "Don't worry, we handled dessert too. We didn't want you overextending yourself." "Where's my cake?" I asked. "In the trash," she said. "It was lopsided. And you seemed stressed." "I found it later. In the garbage bin. Smashed under a bag of used napkins." Greg stood there like a ghost. I asked him, "You knew about this?" He shrugged. "They were just trying to help. They wanted it to be special." That's when I knew I couldn't win.
Not with them.
Not even with him. So I smiled. I nodded. I went through the motions. Mason was still smiling. That was all that mattered. But deep down, something in me cracked. Something that doesn't come back once it's broken. After the party, I cleaned up while Greg scrolled on his phone. Nancy took leftovers. George complained about the drive home. I didn't say much. I just planned my next move. 2 days later, I made the thank you cards. I included a photo in each one. But not just any photo. Only the ones from the first half of the party, before Nancy's magician showed up, before my cake disappeared, before they took over. Pictures of Chuckles, of Mason laughing at the balloon animals, of my homemade cake glowing in the sunlight. My work, my plan, my party. No pictures of Nancy.
No George. No tuxedo magician.
Nothing they brought. Greg asked, "Why didn't you include the rest?" I said, "Because these were the parts that were actually about Mason. And about love." He didn't say anything. Maybe because he knew I was right. Or maybe because he didn't care. Either way, something's about to change. After the thank you cards went out, it didn't take long for the fallout to start. Nancy called me the next morning. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail dripping with sugar and poison.
Eso I saw the cards you sent out.
Beautiful photos. Just curious why none of our contributions were included. I thought we worked so hard to make Mason's party special. A little disappointing, to be honest. Call me back. I didn't. That night, Greg brought it up while we were putting Mason to bed. He didn't even wait until we were alone. "Why are you cutting my parents out of the pictures like that?" he said, right there in the hallway, like it was casual. Like I hadn't spent the whole weekend swallowing my pride while his mother threw my cake in the garbage. I closed Mason's door and turned to him. "Because they took over his party. And you let them." His face got tight. "You're overreacting. They were trying to help."
No, Greg.
They weren't. They replaced everything I made. They kicked out the clown I hired. They threw away the cake I stayed up all night baking. That's not help. That's control. He looked away. "You're making this about you." I laughed. Just once. Not because it was funny, because it was absurd. This was about me. I'm his mom. This was the first party I got to really plan for him. And they didn't just ignore that, they erased it. He didn't respond. He just walked into the bedroom and shut the door behind him. The next day, I found out Nancy had posted her own set of photos on Facebook. She created an entire photo album titled "Making Mason's Day Magical, Proud Grandparents." Every picture featured her and George beaming next to the magician. Close-ups of the bakery cake. Her holding Mason's hand like she was the one running the party. She wrote this long caption about stepping in to make the day unforgettable. Not a single mention of me. Friends from Greg's side started commenting things like, "You always go above and beyond, Nancy," and "Mason's lucky to have you." I felt like I'd been erased from my own child's life. I showed the post to Greg. He scrolled through it, then set his phone down like he was bored. "Why do you care what she posts?" "Because she's making it look like I wasn't even there." He shrugged. "She's just proud. Let it go. Let it go." That night, while Greg was sleeping, I sat at the kitchen table and started writing everything down. Every time Nancy had undermined me. Every time Greg had let it happen. I filled 3 pages in one sitting. Not for revenge.
Not yet. Just to see it in front of me.
To remind myself I wasn't crazy. But I wasn't done. I started getting texts from other parents. One mom, Claire, asked if everything was okay. She said her daughter asked why the clown left early and why some lady made everyone stop playing games. Another mom, Jenna, said Mason told her son that the cake got thrown away because Grandma said it was ugly. I felt something shift in me. They hadn't just disrespected me. They'd confused my son, taught him that when someone puts love into something, it's okay to throw it away if someone richer or louder shows up. I wasn't about to let that sit. That weekend, I took Mason to the park.
Just me and him.
I brought the leftover pieces of my smashed cake. I'd wrapped a few slices in foil just in case, and we had a do-over party under the trees. I told him the truth, in 6-year-old words. I made that cake for you, because I love you. And when someone loves you and makes you something, it's important, even if it's not perfect. He looked up at me and said, "I liked your cake better, Mommy." I almost cried. The next week, I found out Nancy had planned a family celebration dinner at a fancy restaurant. Greg told me we were expected to come.
No invitación, no askin.
Just, we'll be there, show up. I told him we weren't going. He said, "You're going to make a scene over this?"
I said, "No.
I'm just not going to be part of their fake version of our family." We didn't go. Nancy left a voicemail saying, "I hope you understand how hurtful your absence was. We're trying to keep this family together." I deleted it, but I wasn't done yet. About a week after we skipped that dinner, things got quiet. Too quiet. Nancy didn't call. George didn't text. Greg didn't bring them up either. It was like they'd all silently agreed to pretend nothing had happened, which made me more suspicious. Nancy doesn't go quiet unless she's doing something. I was right. It started with the preschool. Mason goes to a small, private preschool just outside Springfield. The teachers know the parents by name, and there's a lot of parent involvement, volunteering, events, fundraisers. I've always been pretty active there. One morning, I dropped Mason off and noticed 2 moms standing by the cubbies whispering. I smiled at them. They didn't smile back. Then Mason's teacher, Miss Tracy, pulled me aside. "Hey, just a heads up," she said. "There's been some confusion about Mason's birthday party." I blinked. Confusion? She hesitated. "Well, one of the other parents mentioned that Greg's mom told her you didn't want to be involved in the party, that she had to take over because you were overwhelmed. That's why there was a magician and a cake from the bakery." I felt sick. She said I didn't want to be involved? Tracy gave me a careful look. I figured it wasn't true. But some of the other parents, you know how things spread. I nodded slowly. I thanked her and left. But in the car, I sat with my hands on the steering wheel for a full 10 minutes, just breathing. Nancy had gone full smear campaign. It made sense now. The silence wasn't a pause, it was cover. She'd been planting her version of the story, probably telling everyone she saved the party. That I was stressed out, maybe even unstable. That she had stepped up to protect Mason from disappointment. I wasn't just mad anymore. I was burning. That night, I asked Greg straight up. "Did your mom tell people I didn't want to plan Mason's party?" He blinked like I'd slapped him.
What? No.
I mean, maybe she said you were overwhelmed. Did you correct her? Silence. I stared at him. So you knew. He rubbed his face. She just said you were tired. She was trying to explain why she helped. She wasn't trying to make you look bad. She told the school parents I didn't want to be involved. She said I was overwhelmed and she had to take over. He looked cornered. Okay. That's not okay. I'll talk to her. No, I said. I'll talk to her. I didn't call. I didn't text. I showed up. Sunday morning, I dropped Mason off at a play date and drove straight to Nancy and George's house. I didn't tell Greg I was going. Nancy opened the door in her robe, holding a coffee mug.
Oh.
We need to talk, I said, stepping inside. She blinked, but didn't stop me. George was in the recliner, half watching golf. I stood in the middle of their living room and said, Why are you telling people I didn't want to plan Mason's party? Nancy's smile flickered. Excuse me? You told the school I was overwhelmed, that you had to take over. She set her mug down, slow and dramatic. I told them you were busy. I didn't say anything untrue. You didn't say anything true either. You didn't tell them you hijacked the party, threw out my cake, and kicked out the clown I hired. George cleared his throat. Maybe this isn't the place. It is, I snapped. You want to rewrite history? Let's get the facts straight. Nancy stood up, her face tightening. We were only trying to help. That party was chaotic. The clown was embarrassing. The cake was falling apart. We saved the day. No, I said. You stole it. You hijacked something that wasn't yours to take. And then you told everyone I couldn't handle it. That's not help. That's sabotage. She crossed her arms. You're being dramatic. I pulled out my phone. I'd printed photos from my version of the party. The good half. I handed them to her. This is the part Mason remembers. This is what he tells people about. You didn't save anything. You just shoved yourself into something that wasn't yours because you can't stand not being in charge. She glanced at the photos and tossed them on the couch. You're a mother-in-law, Nancy. Not the mother. That hit. I turned to leave.
She didn't stop me.
George didn't say a word. By the time I got back home, Greg was sitting at the table, pale. She had already called him. She said you ambushed her, he said. She ambushed my life, I said. He didn't fight back. Later that night, I got a message from one of the school moms. I'm so sorry. I heard what your email said. Didn't sit right with me. I know what kind of mom you are. I stared at that message for a long time. Nancy might be good at stories, but I had the truth, and I wasn't done setting it straight. The last straw came 2 weeks later. Mason came home with a drawing from school. It was a family tree project. He'd drawn me, Greg, himself, and right next to him, not underneath us, but beside him, Nancy and George. Why are Grandma and Grandpa next to you? I asked gently. He shrugged. Teachers said they're important. Grandma said she's like my other mom. My heart stopped. I looked him right in the eyes. Mason, sweetie, do you think Grandma is your other mom? He tilted his head. She said she does all the things moms do, like planning parties and making sure stuff's good. I smiled for him, but inside, something cracked and fell apart. That night, I confronted Greg again. She told Mason she's like his other mom. He sat up on the couch.
What?
That can't be right. It is. She's planting things in his head now. He ran a hand through his hair. Look, I'll talk to her. No. I cut him off. I've done enough talking. I'm going to fix this. All of it. I didn't wait. I made a slideshow using the photos Nancy didn't want anyone to see, the ones from before she stepped in. I included photos of my homemade cake, the cardboard circus tent I spent weeks building, Chuckles making balloon animals while Mason giggled in his lap. Then I added a voiceover. My voice. Calm and direct. This was the party I planned for Mason. I stayed up late making decorations. I baked his favorite cake. I hired a clown he begged for. These are the memories we made. Until someone else decided they knew better. I uploaded it privately and shared it with the preschool parents group. Not publicly. Just to the people who mattered. I didn't insult Nancy. I didn't lie. I just showed the truth. Within hours, comments started rolling in. So, this is what really happened. I was wondering why the clown left. Your cake was amazing. That bakery one looked boring. I didn't respond to any of them. I didn't need to. 2 days later, Nancy called. I answered. You made me look like a monster, she hissed. No, I said. I made you look like what you are. You've embarrassed this family.
No, Nancy.
You embarrassed yourself. I just gave people the part you left out. She went quiet. Then she hung up. Greg didn't defend her this time. In fact, he didn't say much at all. Over the next few days, he stayed late at work more and more. We barely spoke. A week later, he told me he was going to stay with his parents for a few days to cool off. I didn't argue. I let him go. And then I started packing. Not everything, just enough. Mason and I moved in with my sister across town. I filed for a legal separation 2 days later. I needed space to think,
To breathe.
to figure out what kind of life I wanted to give my son, one where his mother wasn't treated like an afterthought. Greg didn't try to stop me. 3 weeks after that, the preschool hosted a Moms and Muffins morning. Each child was supposed to bring their mother or a mother figure. Nancy showed up. She tried to walk in with Mason. The teacher stopped her. "I'm sorry, only legal guardians today." Nancy smiled tightly. "I'm his grandmother. I'm like his other mother." The teacher didn't flinch. "Then you're welcome to wait outside." She stood in the hallway and watched while Mason sat next to me, laughing and eating a blueberry muffin, his hand in mine. I didn't smile at her. I didn't wave. I just turned back to Mason and said, "Is this a good muffin?" He nodded. "Way better than that white cake." I laughed. I might have lost a husband, but I kept my dignity. I kept my voice. And I kept the part that mattered most, my son. Sometimes revenge isn't loud. Sometimes it's just living your truth so clearly that the people who tried to rewrite it can't stand to look. And now, when Mason flips through his birthday album, the only thing he sees is the love that started it all. Mine.